Hey, everyone. This question comes from a viewer. They asked, if the universe is infinite, does that mean there are infinite versions of you out there? Let's start at the beginning. What does infinite actually mean? The universe is infinite means that space goes on forever in all directions. There is no edge. It also means that time goes on forever. There is no end. And we know that there are probably multiple universes, possibly infinitely many. This is all based on current scientific understanding. Then you have to believe that in those other universes there are other versions of you. Does this seem logical? I think so. So if you accept that the multiverse is infinite, the idea that there are other universes stacked up against ours like pancakes on a shelf, do you know why you're here right now on this particular day watching this particular video? No, not really. It's called the infinite monkey theorem. Okay, not really a theorem, but you get the idea. If there are infinite universes and infinite time in each of them, and you had an infinite number of attempts to roll a 6 on a die, eventually you would roll a 6. In fact, you would roll every possible combination of dice rolls an infinite number of times because everything that can happen will happen given enough time, including infinite versions of you. I've changed so much since I was last me. Does that answer the question? Well, we have 2 more to go before we get to the conclusion. So technically, you aren't even 100% you. You're 50% someone else's parents and 50% someone else. Your second question was, are these versions truly you? I'm going to answer that with another question. Are you you? When you look at yourself in the mirror, what do you see? An image reflected back at you. An interpretation of photons bouncing off the surface of your skin. Your nervous system processes those photons and creates the image of a person. You don't know anything about 99% of the atoms that make up your body. It's what you think it is. It's not necessarily anything objective. You know, do you know who you are? You don't even know why you're alive. And yet here you are. You're conscious. You're aware. You are you. Are they still you? Yes, because they would still recognize that they are themselves. Is there any core you that persists across versions? And maybe that's all that matters. In fact, let's expand on that idea. I don't have the answers, but I can offer you 2 ways to think about this. And if that's true, then all other versions of you are exactly that. Other versions of your thoughts, your memories, and your experiences. Like literally, you don't know what they are, where they came from, or what they're doing. And yet you are you. Your physical form changes over time. Do you ever have a feeling that you're not really you? I think that's what we're talking about here. Cells die and are replaced, and someday soon you will die, and someone will be watching this video saying, wow, I can't believe I'm still me. So if you see a int define who you are by the collection of cells that make up your body, which change constantly, then you can't define who you are by your DNA, because that's the same thing. You asked, if infinite versions of you exist, is your sense of self just one of many configurations? Are you still unique? There has to be a subject and an object. If there is a version of you elsewhere that has different DNA, is that version still you? Yes, because that's how we reproduce. We take half of our DNA from our mother and half of our DNA from our father. But if you are separate from both, well, I don't know what you are, but you're probably not infinite. All good questions. Let's take this a step further. There are theories that suggest that there might be other universes, but that's all they are, theories. That person is you, but the image isn't you. It's a representation of you. It's an interpretation of you. Now imagine a version of you that has slightly different DNA. That version of you would look different. Maybe their eyes would be a different color. Their hair would be a different texture. Their height would be different. Their face would be different. That alone may be enough to give your existence meaning. You can believe that there are infinite versions of you out there, or you can just enjoy the fact that there is only one version of you and that you exist in this moment, and that is all that matters. But when that version of you looks in the mirror, do they see themselves? Yes, that's the funny thing about identity. Here's another example. Imagine a version of you that's smarter than you. They remember things better. They have perfect pitch. They speak 7 languages. Okay, now we're getting to the third part of your question. Or is your identity just one point among infinite possibilities? You know, I think this is a valid question. I think it touches on something important. There's a quote from the TV show Lost. How do we know we are us? How do we know we exist? One is to say that you are your thoughts, your memories, your experiences. Maybe they don't have the exact same thoughts, but maybe they're just slightly different versions of you that are thinking slightly different thoughts. Maybe they don't have the same memories, but maybe they're just slightly different versions of you that are remembering slightly different things. Maybe they haven't had the same experiences, but maybe they're just slightly different versions of you that are experiencing slightly different things. Another way to think about this is to say that you are not your thoughts, your memories, or your experiences, but rather the observer of those things. And if that's true, then all other versions of you are just other observers looking at the same thoughts, memories, and experiences. Which version do you want to be? Observer or the observed? At some point, if you are not your thoughts, memories, or experiences, then there has to be a separation between you and them. If you are you and you observe your thoughts, memories, and experiences, then the infinite versions of you are just infinite observers. And if you are those thoughts, memories, and experiences, then the infinite versions of you are just infinite versions of those things. You might be a single version of a single person who is trying to understand their place in an infinite multiverse. I hope that answered your question, but it doesn't really matter because none of this matters anyway. Who are we? Why are we here? What's the point? The idea of infinite versions of you existing elsewhere is interesting, sure, but it's not real. There is no multiverse. We don't even know for sure that there's more than one universe. Quantum mechanics says that we live in a multiverse. Inflation theory says that we live in a multiverse. String theory says that we live in a multiverse. But all of these are currently just speculation. So you can believe whatever you want. And even if there are infinite versions of you, you are the only one experiencing this particular life right now with your current thoughts, emotions, and perspective. And hey, if you're enjoying this series, be sure to follow so you don't miss out when new videos are released.